Back with you on Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta. We do remind you, head over to YouTube. I want you to put in the little browser there, Locked On Sports Atlanta. Find our YouTube page. Give us a subscribe. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think about the show. And, of course, I want you to follow me on my Twitter page at JMCH316. We continue to talk about the Hawks and them getting knocked out of the playoffs last night. Let's get into Trae Young, because when your star is not your star, you're in trouble in the NBA. Trae Young last night, another miserable night. 2 for 12 from the field, 0 for 5 from three-point land. Had 8 rebounds, had 6 assists, but he had 6 turnovers in the game, -3 and 11 points. Now, look, not going to blame Trae 1,000%, because the other guy that has to have some fault in this is Nate McMillan. Their offense is so sluggish. They have very little ball movement. They don't move guys around the perimeter for a team that is a perimeter team. Guys are not cutting it around and getting underneath and coming back up. They're not setting enough picks up high to free guys up. If you got to set picks in the backcourt to get the ball up the court, get it up the court and set a pick and get your guy freed up. But their offensive stagnation is just pound the basketball in the floor, maybe make a pass, and then force up a shot from there. So Nate McMillan has to help out Trae Young. And I know we talked about in the postgame about, well, maybe next year we go get ourselves a point guard that can allow Trae to roam. Okay. I mean, that sounds good, but he's got to move better without the ball. And he likes having the ball in his hand. That's John Collins' problem with him, is that he's like, Trae wants to have the ball, and he's a ball-heavy guard. Just because you have a point guard doesn't mean that Trae is going to have the ball in his hand a lot. So we'll see about that. I'm not convinced that's the solution either. But they have to figure something else out. But the league now has their blueprint for how to defend Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. Now, that doesn't mean next year in 82 games, everybody's going to play the same way, because there's going to be a Tuesday night in November that you play the Houston Rockets and they don't have a crap care about what's going on, or a Thursday evening in December against the Orlando Magic, who have nobody on their roster. What I'm talking about is when you play the good teams and it's crunch time against the good teams in the NBA, they're going to double Trae. They're going to physical him up. They're going to try to take away his lanes and alleys to be able to throw the basketball. The blueprint is there. And if there's nothing else about professional sports, it is everything's a copycat league. The NFL's a copycat league. The NBA's a copycat league. Major League Baseball's a copycat league. They're all copycat leagues. And there's now a blueprint of moving forward, how to take the Hawks out of their game and how to slow down Trae Young. Again, not every team in the league can do it, but every team, that's worth a crap will try that. And the Hawks have to get tougher in the offseason. They have to physically get tougher. I joked about this on the show last night. It's the old Untouchables line from Sean Connery. When they start roughing Trae up and they start getting after him, okay, they send one of yours to the hospital, you send one of theirs to the morgue. They pull a knife, you pull a gun. That's how you've got to do it. And they have to find some guys that they've had in the past, the Zaza Pachulias and the Deadmans and the Ivan Johnson players, that you're going to have to get some guys out there that physical it up a little bit. And their job is to come in and set a tone for the game. But they're such a soft team. And Trae Young is never going to be a physical player. I give Trae Young a ton of credit. He played the 8th most minutes in the NBA this year. That says a lot, okay? I'm not saying he's not tough, but he's not going to be a physical style player. You have to help him out. You have to provide guys that can be physical for him to help free him up. And they don't do that. Now, look, as far as the offseason goes, and we'll get more into this as time moves on, unless Tony Wrestler panics. And I am curious to see what Tony Wrestler's reaction to all of this is. unless he panics, Travis Schlenk will be back. Nate McMillan just signed the first year of his 4-year extension. He'll be back. The only way that changes if Travis Schlenk's, or if Tony Ressler, if Tony Ressler, the owner of the team, by the way, if he says, nope, this wasn't good enough, we got to get this thing fixed quickly or we're going to be screwed, because they're going to go into luxury tax area and Trae's getting a whole bunch of money. And if he makes an NBA all team, he's going to get $34 million more. So yeah, I understand you have to bring in another star and you have to have somebody that fits between what Jon and Trae are, but those guys cost a ton of money. And there aren't many of those guys. And I don't want Karl Anthony Towns. I don't want Zion. I don't want any of those guys. What have those guys done? Look how well the Pelicans are playing with Zion doing nothing but, being in the layup line and throwing down dunks. They went and got McCollum and they've got Ingram and they feel like, okay, we're ready to roll. We're in good shape. Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota can't get out of their own way. They're watching, they're watching Ja Morant and Memphis right now stick it right to them. Blow a lead here, blow a lead there. Hell, I already got enough of those guys on the Hawks roster. I don't need another 25-12 guy to come in here and blow leads for me. I got that already. So the offseason is going to be interesting because it is important. But the NBA showed you a blueprint for how to take out the Hawks. And they showed you a blueprint for how to defend Trae Young especially. And he's got some things that he's got to work on in the offseason. And I understand he's their main offensive guy, but there has to be a trust factor in some of these guys to knock down some shots. DeAndre Hunter last night was magnificent in that game. And every night, when you have one of these kinds of teams, you have to find the guy who's the hot guy and you have to feed him. Even if that means Trae Young at times has to take a little bit of an offensive step back. Because Trae in this series forced way too many bad shots. His turnovers and his bad shot forcing was a real hindrance to the Hawks. Look, in a 7-game series, I've talked about this a million times. In a 7-game series, or let's expand it, okay? To win the NBA championship, you have to win at least 16 games. That's assuming you're not a play-in team, right? Assuming you're not a play-in team, which is almost impossible to think about winning an NBA title. If you're a play-in team, you're talking about 17 or 18 games. But at the very least, a non-play-in team has to win 16 games. Okay? So Kevin Huerter is not going to win 3 or 4 games for you. DeAndre Hunter is not going to win 4 games for you. Clint Capella is not going to win 4 games for you. Right? Like, that's not how it works in the NBA. You have to win 16 games. Trae Young's got to win 11 of those. At least 10, but probably 11 of those. And I have to have 1 or 2 games where John Collins wins it for me. I do have to have 1 game where Huerter wins it for me, or a game where Hunter wins it for me, or a game where Bogey wins it for me, or a game where Gallo wins it for me. But your stars have to be stars. And they have to play like that. And they can't force bad shots for the sake of forcing bad shots. They can't force bad turnovers for the sake of, we're trying to make something happen that we can't get done. And that's on Trae. And if you want to know why Brooklyn and the Hawks are already on the sidelines and they've gone fishing already, the 2 big stars, man, Durant didn't play well for the Brooklyn Nets at all. Trae Young did not play well for the Hawks. And you see those teams are knocked out and they're eliminated. And it's into the offseason. So we'll spend a lot of time talking about the Hawks offseason, about all of this. When we get back, we are 1 day away. It is draft day tomorrow, not the movie and all that kind of stuff. It is draft day. We'll give you some draft thoughts when we get back. It is Jon Chuckery. This is Hittin' Hard on Locked On Sports Atlanta.